Well, good evening, folks. It's Sunday night here in the shop. I'm doing a little reading here tonight. Been thinking about pride here lately. And if we look in the book of Proverbs in chapter 16, verses 18 and 19, Solomon tells us that pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better is it to be of an humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. So, I've been thinking a lot here lately about pride and what it really does to us. If we think about it, how many conflicts that we deem as big conflicts in our life could we avoid if we would have just laid aside our pride? Our stupid, stubborn pride. Maybe it's just me, but I can look back on most of mine and think, you know what? If I hadn't have been thinking, well, what's somebody else going to think? Or, by golly, they're not going to do that to me and get by with it, because whenever we say that, we're really thinking, I don't want so-and-so to see that somebody got by with that against me, and, I let them get by with it, so I better stand up and do something about it. Whenever we get down that personal and we start worrying about those things, whether it be family members or co-workers or spouses, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of conflict that just we don't have to have. And I'm saying we because I'm probably one of the biggest ones. I think a lot about, and it still does. I mean, I'm not saying that I've become immune to it or got past it, but we got to learn not to sweat the little things. And whenever we let pride get in our way, I think we tend to sweat those little things a lot more. My friend Chris Johnson posted a post today about football and life and punting. And, sometimes we have to back up and punt. He was making that point, we may be going one way and we get to the point that we can't go any further, so sometimes we have to punt, and sometimes we do. And we don't want to let pride get in the way of those times, because too many times, at least for me, I've let pride get in the way, and I put my head down and tried to bull my way through it, and I turn into what Solomon tells us there in verse 19. Because I let pride get in the way, tried to bull my way through it, then I have that fall, and that happens to us. So I think that, when we see conflict coming, maybe if we can step back, maybe if I can step back and say, what if nobody saw this? What if nobody knew about it? Then what would I really think about it? What would I care? And then if we turn over into Matthew then in chapter 5, verse 39, let's just see what Jesus has to say about it in his teachings on forgiveness. We'll actually start in verse 38. It says, "You have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth," which it did say that in the Old Testament for sure. It says, "But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other cheek also." So, that really gets back into the pride deal too. Whether it's literally smite us on the right cheek or it's figuratively, whether it's in a business dealing or, some family argument, whatever it might be. Think about what's important. Is it more important that friendship, or is it more important this little thing that we've turned into a big thing? So with that, I've talked too long now, but just wanted to share those thoughts with you. Good night, God bless, and hope somebody gets out there and catches a lot of fish this week. Talk to you later. Bye.